Welcome, everyone, as we are now on day 18, walking through the 40 chapters of Exodus across the 40 days of Lent. I had a question that came across my desk yesterday, one that I really enjoyed getting when I was discussing it over the weekend. It was something that interested me, and I'm glad that it interested someone else. Going back to, I believe it was Saturday's reading from chapter 16, there the Hebrew victory was correlated there to Moses being able to raise his arms, and so the correlation there was their success and failure as an army correlated to how long Moses could keep those arms up. Um, and so, someone asked about that, and it's quite a compelling matter. I think that what's occurring is, I mean, clearly it's putting Moses on the spot, right? On the one hand, here Moses, from his perspective, but he's learning more than ever, something that certainly he was already aware of, but yet it's becoming even more realized, the responsibility and the weight that he has. He's able to determine the outcomes of battle based on the strength of his arms, or being able to prop up his arms. I mean, that's quite a tremendous weight of responsibility. But also here, I think it should merit the favor, or at least the awareness of the Hebrews, of their leader Moses here, and say, look, this guy is quite critical, important, and pertinent for our survival. He's God's representative, and we ought to support him, and we ought to listen to him and be compliant with him rather than working to resist him. The Hebrews have seemingly resisted him just as much as Pharaoh did, and so I think that's the purpose there in that. I don't have any better answer at the time this time, and if anybody does, then please pass it along. But of course, that presents an excellent segue now into chapter number 18, because Moses was handling so much business on behalf of the people. The weight of victory was on his shoulders. That, his father-in-law, remember, who's a priest of Midian, ends up hearing about all of this. His father-in-law is Jethro, and his, even though he's a Midianite, there's a certain amount of wisdom that he is going to offer to Moses. He says, I'm coming to you, verse number 6. Moses bowed down to him and kissed him. In verse 7, verse 8, Moses told his father-in-law everything that God had done to Egypt through him. And then in verse number 9, Jethro rejoices about all of this, and gives a certain praise to God for what has occurred. And even brings in verse number 12 burnt offerings and sacrifices to God. And here Aaron and all the elders of Israel came to eat their food with the father-in-law of Moses before God here. And so it's an interesting scenario. Jethro, the Midianite priest, he appears to be some sort of pagan priest. He's going to give honor to God. He's going to bring a sacrifice. They're going to eat together, table fellowship, something very important in that world. This is a moment to think about. Maybe over the next day or so, as I reflect on it, there'll be more of a sense of purpose aside from what we immediately get on the next day in verse number 13. Moses, his father-in-law Jethro, saw everything that Moses was doing for the people. He was working from morning until evening, administrating this new nation. And Moses says in verse 15, hey, everybody wants to hear from God. When they've got a dispute, something to be judged, or whatever, they come to me, and I have to arbitrate all these disagreements. And so Moses said, his father-in-law Jethro says, you're wearing yourself out. This is not a sustainable form of leadership. It's very inefficient. It's too heavy of a burden for you. Here's what you do. He says, give the people need a law, that they need a certain standard that they are held to. And not only are they going to need a law, they are going to need representatives, elders, people who are of good character, who don't take bribes, and they're going to be able to judge the various disputes between the people. They're going to oversee the day-to-day task, as it were, administrate the micro matters. And Moses, you need to look at the big picture, administrate over the macro situation. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out. And it's quite a practical reality and pragmatic consideration. Here coming from the pagan priest Jethro, the Midianite. Few people are gifted at overseeing and administrating both macro and micro circumstances. And so Moses, in verse 24, listens to his father-in-law. He chooses capable men to help. And so here they have some good organization. Moses sends his father-in-law on his way, and Jethro goes back to Midian, his own land. And so now part of the circumstances that we have considered is that this collective now, they are seeking group identity and formation. And here, clearly, they are seeking organization as well. And this organization is beginning to take form. And in fact, now, because of Jethro, it moves us closer to the big moment when Moses goes on Sinai to receive the law from God. And so here we are approaching in terms of chapters, in a couple of days, we'll be at the midway point of this book where, the testimony becomes even more intense as part of this group's formation. Thank you for joining with me. I will meet you again tomorrow. Take care.